Hey, hey, hey. Happy Tuesday. Come on in. Pull up a chair. The Gaming Gang Dispatch is in the air. Howdy, gang, and welcome once again to the Duct Tape Studios. I'm Jeff McAleer, your host here at the Gaming Gang Dispatch, brought to you by, amazingly enough, thegaminggang.com, of which I happen to be the founder and editor-in-chief. So welcome aboard, everybody. Tonight is Tuesday, June 11th, 2024, and this is live show 1066. If you're not overly familiar with this show, let me point out, super casual. Just hanging out, talking about the latest in tabletop gaming news. And then I'll usually pontificate about something related to our hobby, which is going to be the case tonight. But of course, we don't engage in any sort of heavy mental lifting or mental heavy lifting. We're not engaged in rocket surgery by any stretch of the imagination. No, just hanging out, having some fun. Of course, when you're out watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all the latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you will not find here on YouTube, such as Sammy Uhas's reviews and our comic book news. Don't see that here on the channel? No, you do not. Come on, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. And of course, because this is a live show, that means there is chat available. It's not on screen. It's one of the ways I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. And you must be a subscriber to the channel for at least an hour before you can take part in chat. Yet another way I keep some of the more unusual commenters at bay. But if you want to say howdy, maybe you get a question, a comment. We're going to be talking about how to avoid Dungeon Master and Game Master burnout later. So if you want to throw some tips out while we're talking about that after the news, by all means, please contribute. Well, let's see. Who do we got cooking in chat so far? We've got Kathy Evans, Chris Burkhart, Keith Ulu, Semper Buffo, Pete Drakulich. Zetro is with us. It's been a while since we've seen Zetro. Tesco Love, Kevin King, and James Venabush. So we got a chat rocking and rolling already. Pretty nice. Pretty nice. And I will take a guess. The lovely and talented Miss Sarah D is lurking in the shadows as one of our chat moderators, polishing up that band hammer, sprinkling it, yes, with glitter. You're like, sprinkling it with what? Oh, glitter? Oh, okay. Can't be that bad. Keith Ulu says, they're not trying to find meaning in Tangerine Dream albums after bong rips. Of course not. Who would be doing that? Well, that's a blast out of the past. Tangerine Dream? Right off the top of my head, didn't they do Risky Business? Wasn't that one of the soundtracks that they did? 80s, 90s, they did a lot of cool soundtracks, a lot of instrumental, kind of little trippy. Tesco Love says, not glitter. That stuff gets everywhere. Well, that's why it's on that band hammer, because not only would somebody get banned, then they'd have glitter all over the place. Not good. Not good at all. Sarah D is with us saying howdy to the gang. All right. Got a lot cooking on tonight's show, so let's jump right on into the news. I am actually really heavy into crowdfunding projects on tonight's show, which is very unusual. I usually have maybe one, possibly two news pieces. Tonight, I've actually got four, but they're all worth checking out. So first off, Pinnacle Entertainment Group is currently in the midst of a very successful Kickstarter to fund both the Pathfinder for Savage Worlds Advanced Player's Guide 2 and Bestiary 2. Here's what I know about the project. Pinnacle loves Pathfinder, and they know you do too, because the amazing support you showed during the original campaign for the core Pathfinder for Savage Worlds rules and the Rise of the Rune Lord's Adventure Path, and the follow-up campaign for the Advanced Player's Guide and Curse of the Crimson Throne. The Pathfinder for Savage Worlds core rules contained a wealth of possibilities for character creation, and the Advanced Player's Guide added unique new options. The Advanced Player's Guide 2 adds even more character options with class edges, new powers, and magic items, providing a world of possibilities for players and game masters. With all of this new content to customize your characters, Peg wants to make sure that there were plenty of enemies to fight. So an all-new full-color 128-page hardcover book of creatures is here to help any game master put their players to the test. GMs and players are always hungry for fresh challenges in the amazing world of Golarion. The Bestiary 2 gives you dozens of new enemies to encounter, from a wide range of outsiders such as eons and demons to creatures native to the material plane, such as sphinxes and dinosaurs. This project is already well past, like the 100% funding mark. And there are a variety of pledge levels, including decks of bestiary cards that look pretty sweet. But you can reserve the 2 hardcover volumes for a pledge of $60, or score them in PDF alone for a pledge of $40 through June 27th. Now, expected delivery for the digital files is actually July. Now, those physical books, you're going to have to wait a little bit longer. They are expected to arrive next May. If you are curious about Savage Pathfinder, as most people refer to it, I have reviewed the big box set. I think they call it the core. I remember correctly, the core box. Very cool stuff. Very nice. And if you are interested in the world of Golarion, and it doesn't really matter about that 3-action economy, you might want to take a peek, especially if you're a big fan of Savage Worlds, such as our friend of the show and chat moderator, the Madman, is. But there you go. We've still got some time to jump on board. I got to say, I don't know. I haven't really heard anything from Pinnacle Entertainment Group in a while. They were going to send along the, what was it? The kind of kids on bikes that they did, Pine Box, Texas. But I didn't hear anything from them. So I don't know. I'll try to look to set something up with Pinnacle Entertainment Group at Gen Con once again, because I had not had any experience with Savage Worlds a year ago, and I have had an opportunity to check some of their stuff out. That's a cool system. I like it. I like it. Cedro says they're usually here. They just tend to lurk and just hit like. Oh, and they're also reminding everybody, hit like. Flint Fire Forge and James Eck, as well as 245 Trioxin, are hanging with the gang tonight. 245 Trioxin says the completionist in them wants this. In reality, they haven't been able to get Savage Worlds Pathfinder to the table with their group. Yes, one of these days, maybe we'll throw that out there as a topic. What to do when you can't get your group to play a game you want to run. Kevin King says there's several sessions into running second edition Pathfinder, possibly remastered. Definitely not rules light. No, it is not. The things I talk about as far as Pathfinder second edition to recommend that system, the remastered, I guess I'll say, is the 3-action economy is very unique. Characters, NPCs, creatures, monsters all become completely different because of that 3-action economy and the various actions they have available to them. And as far as fantasy role-playing games go, I really do think that Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remastered probably has the most customization as far as player characters, especially once we get that second player book, Player Core 2, which, if memory serves, is slated for a Gen Con release. So, yes, I always tell people if they're interested in checking out Pathfinder 2nd Edition, it is not rules light. It is crunchy. But combat tends to be different. And it's kind of cool. It's almost, in one way, it's almost like if you're a fan of the X-Men comics from back in the day, the characters will kind of get into these various different synergies. Okay, you do this, then I do this, and then we build off that and then do that. It's kind of cool. Kind of cool. Savage Pathfinder, far, far lighter rules-wise. Just so you know, Kevin. Just pointing that out. Chris Burkett asks, how does Pathfinder 2nd Edition compare to RuneQuest 6th Edition on the complexity scale? More complex. It is more complex. RuneQuest, truthfully, isn't all that complex. I think what throws some people off is when they see the armor locations, as well as each location having hit points and things like that. But as far as like combat options, oh my goodness, there are tons and tons in Pathfinder 2nd Edition Remastered as opposed to in RuneQuest. So there you go. There's your answer. Chris Lundgren's with us tonight too. Good to see you, Chris. I saw that it was your wife's birthday. So a very happy birthday to your wife. I think it was maybe yesterday I spotted that. So cheers. And of course, hello to Buddy. Tell Buddy not to chew on your keyboard cable. Bad Buddy. No relation to Bad Bunny. Moving right along, let's talk a little more Kickstarter. That's right, because Troll Lord Games has launched their Kickstarter for Castles and Crusades Reforged. They launched it yesterday, and I've got the dope. Castles and Crusades is a tabletop role-playing game that focuses on imaginative gameplay, allowing everyone in the gaming community to utilize whatever play styles they desire. Now with revised non-open game license content. Its primary purpose is to give those who play the game an adaptable, responsive, easy-to-use mechanic that does not force any one style of play on the participants, and which does not restrict any playing style. The system was designed to be rules light, allowing new players to learn the system in under 15 minutes and make their characters in the same space of time. To achieve this, a simple and logical attribute check system, the Siege Engine, was created. By downplaying the role of rules in the game, it encourages imaginative play, unrestricted by predetermined rule sets. Castles and Crusades was first created in 2003-2004 and debuted in Christmas of that 2004. It was the first to use a simple attribute-based system as its key mechanic. It predated and in many ways sparked the OSR publications that followed and heavily influenced 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, which is true. It actually did. For some reason, I have something in my eye. and I wear contacts. So it's not to the point where it's like, geez, I got to pull the contact out. But it's close. I'm like, all right, come on, cut it out. Back to the news. The core of this game has remained unchanged, but for minor edits and a few revisions. It has played the same all these years. Now with the revised non-open game license content, still plays the same, even faster. So, there was a video. I was going to share it, and I got flagged for copyright because of the music. And I'll be very honest, I think I can say this because I consider the Troll Lords pals, and I think they appreciate the coverage I provide for them. But I do not know who convinced them to use the video that they did. It's awful. In no way, shape, or form does it incent you to actually back this Kickstarter. It doesn't. I'm sorry to say that. As I wipe a tear. It's kind of like, now the voiceover's fine. I like the voiceover to it. But we don't even really see the game. We see these like Ren Fair actors walking around. You get somebody at a forge hammering a sword. So there's somebody else walking along. It's like, okay. It's like, what the? They could have used that voiceover and they could have shared just images, almost like I'm doing right now, of the awesome homage artwork on the covers and some of the really cool interior artwork throughout. That would have been really far more inspirational for people to shell out their dough. So I do want to mention that there was a video. Just the music flagged me for copyright, so we don't use those videos on the show. But this project funded in the first 13 minutes. You can reserve the hardcover copies of the Player's Handbook, Monsters and Treasure, the Castle Keeper's Guide, and an adventure, as well as PDFs, for a pledge of $175. Or you can get all of that in PDF alone for a $55 pledge through July 10th. Now, expected delivery is going to be pretty quick. It's supposed to be this December. From my understanding, this is all good to go. And one of the big knocks that I have had people talk about, and I can understand their point. Their point is very valid. There have been a multitude of print runs for Castles and Crusades. And there are some typos and grammatical errors that have hung around print run after print run after print run. Those are supposed to be ironed out now. Plus, I believe they're also changing the layout. So something to keep in mind. If you're not overly familiar with Castles and Crusades, and I have covered it quite a bit here on the Gaming Gang, I really do like it a lot. If I were looking to run a Dungeons and Dragons adjacent campaign, say I wanted to maybe run some old AD&D modules, but I want modern mechanics, I want a modern feel to the proceedings, I would turn to Castles and Crusades in a second. It is that good. I like it a ton. Here's what I wanted to let you know if you're not overly familiar. You need 2 books. Player's Handbook, Monsters and Treasure. That is it. That is all you need. The Castle Keeper's Guide. There are many people out there who had the misconception, oh, it's like the Dungeon Master's Guide, so I got to get it because it's a trio of core books. It is not. The Castle Keeper's Guide is all optional content, and a lot of it is kind of designed for, oh, so you want to run a specific sort of vibe? play it like this. Or, hey, you want to do your experience points different? Well, here's an option here. It is packed with all those kind of optional mechanics and rules and so forth. Flaming Heron is with us in chat, pointing out that they got their free copy of the Player's Handbook. That's right. So if you had signed up to be notified about the Kickstarter, you got a copy of the Player's Handbook absolutely free. This is something that Troll Lord Games does all the time. In fact, if you poke around, you'll find that you can get the 2 core books earlier print runs absolutely free, or they used to prior to this Kickstarter at least. So keep that in mind. So Michael Burrell is joining us tonight, says the homage artwork is really great. And they're sticking with these covers as far as I understand. So we should have some additional Troll Lord coverage in the future. I know if you support this Kickstarter, you'll also get a free copy of the Barsoom guide. I think it's a guide to Barsoom, because Troll Lord Games is going to do a John Carter of Mars setting for Castles and Crusades. It's either they're going to do a setting or they're going to do a role-playing game, but it's going to use the Castles and Crusades mechanics, which I'm kind of surprised, to be very honest, because I know Modifius Entertainment, when they did their John Carter of Mars role-playing game, which I reviewed, thought it was really cool. I thought the artwork was fantastic. I didn't understand why they did kind of a coffee table book layout for it. I thought that was kind of odd, but it did not do well. It did not do well at all. So I'm kind of surprised. Let's talk about another crowdfunding project, because the Outgunned Adventure role-playing game is now about to enter its home stretch over on BackerKit for 2 Little Mice. And this is the latest. Outgunned Adventure is a pulp adventure game inspired by the classics of the genre, from the immortal Indiana Jones to the Mummy. In Outgunned Adventure, the players take on the role of brave adventurers in search of an invaluable treasure. Outgunned Adventure is the first genre book in the Outgunned line, and you could play it either standalone or as an expansion for Outgunned. Are you new to Outgunned? Outgunned is a cinematic action role-playing game inspired by the classics of the action and heist genre, from Die Hard to True Lies, passing through James Bond, Atomic Blonde, Kingsman, Ocean's 11, Hot Fuzz, and the latest John Wick. I find it really interesting how they mention Hot Fuzz. In Outgunned, you play as a group of heroes struggling against the villain to try to save the day. Always outnumbered, always outgunned. Outgunned is powered by a set of highly cinematic game mechanics called Director's Cut. The system uses small pools of 6-sided dice to determine the outcome of all tasks that involve a risk or a danger. When rolling dice in Outgunned, your goal isn't to roll the highest or lowest possible total, but to combine as many equal symbols as you can in pairs, 3 of a kind, and so on. There is a short video. It's not even a minute in length, but it will give you a closer look at Outgunned Adventure.
The Grand Adventure has returned. The world out there is full of unexplored jungles, lost pyramids, and cursed temples that are just waiting for an unprepared explorer. Your next journey starts today. Collapsing floors, creaky bridges, poison darts, fire jets, and rolling boulders. You can expect all that and even more. But if I know you, a handful of deadly traps won't be enough to stop you. You have your eyes set on the treasure. Wherever this journey may lead you, you will rise to the challenge. Outgunned Adventure awaits.
You can reserve a copy of the hardcover of Outgunned Adventure with action dice, as well as a series of PDFs, which are also included with this, for a pledge of 69 euros, or grab the PDFs for a pledge of 29 euros through June 20th. Expected delivery is next May of both digital and physical releases. I really have to reach out to Two Little Mice because everything I've seen from them looks really good. Their household, they've got that. Outgunned looks pretty cool, which is out. This is, like I said, the first genre book. They also have these PDFs of what I think they're calling action flicks. And they're like 15, 20 pages. But what they are, they address specific like series, but they're not licensed by the IP, right? So I saw one of them is Army of Darkness. And you can tell it's Army of Darkness because the character on the cover of this PDF has a chainsaw for a hand and a shotgun, but it's a woman. I'm like, wow. So I'm going to reach out. I'm going to reach out to Two Little Mice, see if they might be interested in sending some stuff along for me to get some video coverage out there for. We'll have to check that out. Russell Higgins is with us in chat. Kevin King says, I bet she's not going to put that sword in a museum. That belongs in a museum. Kevin King also asks, if I buy the game, do I get to call my tomb robber character an archaeologist? You can call them whatever you want. Something else I understand is this has various different archetypes, but archetypes are not locked into only being able to do certain things. I believe, and I could be absolutely wrong, I believe each character can attempt to do anything. It's just that the various different archetypes have things that they're exceptionally good at and things that maybe they're not so hot at. Continuing the crowdfunding news, there is an adventure double feature by the Merry Mushmen. It is now in its final week over on Kickstarter. Here's what I know about the horrendous hounds of Edinburgh and raiding the Obsidian Keep. The horrendous hounds of Edinburgh. Pity the villagers of Edinburgh. The Cryptwood, where they have lived for centuries, is now haunted by murderous demon hounds. No one dares venture into the forest at night, but surely someone will have to find out where these horrendous creatures come from, or Edinburgh is surely doomed. This adventure is an ideal follow-up to Nightmare Over Ragged Hollow. You may recall I did a news piece about that adventure a while back. Another town to help, another mystery to solve, and more dangerous territory to explore in search of treasure. With roots firmly growing from the horror genre of the folk variety this time, this new module is close in tone to its predecessor. Many of the meandering paths of the Cryptwood will lead your players to whimsical situations borrowed from fairy tales. And then there's raiding the Obsidian Keep. If you've read Nightmare Over Ragged Hollow and think you know Joseph R. Lewis's adventure style, you may have to reconsider. Raiding the Obsidian Keep is a full-on dark fantasy romp across a war-torn seascape in search of a cursed almost said forest, it's fortress. Sailing to Isla Rakia any old day would be a risky proposition. After all, there has to be a reason why the Archbishop of Radiant Vitella has declared the Duke and Duchess ruling the island sorcerers and heretics. But traveling just after Radiant Vitella sent a fleet to overthrow the lords of Isla Rakia, Probably not a good idea. Whatever dark magics were unleashed during the assault left chaotic scars across the island and changed its inhabitants. Only good news is, so much chaos should make it easier to get in. What hides within the obsidian keep's lightning-stricken walls, however, may make this the most hardened of adventurers flee for their lives. There is a Kickstarter video. It's almost 3 minutes in length. You're probably going to get a kick out of it because it has a song. Yes, you heard me right. It's got a song.
Have you heard the news from the Merry Mushmen, creators of the Knock scene, who bring you two brand new adventures, the likes of which you've not seen?
First is the horrendous hound of Hindenburg. Terror roams the night in the bramble paths of the Cryptwood forest, where a pack of demonic hounds roam the night, savaging those fool enough to fight. Witches and cutthroats stand in your way, and old Sly George will have his say. Danger and rewards await for thee, to quote the Clash, death or glory. This Kickstarter seems too good to be true, but there's one more adventure in store for you. The merchants delivered my comrades and me off the coast of the Isla Requia, where the waves still collide with the shattered remains of the fleet of the Radiant Vitella. Down on the shore, the survivors tell tale of a red storm that rose from the deep. Each one convinced it's a death wish to try and raid the obsidian key. But what evil feasts on everyone's help? What of the Duke? What of his wealth? What kind of ransom is urging us on, making us hold our very lives cheap? Whatever the reasons, we're destined to try and raid the obsidian key. Great new adventures from the Merry Mushmen.
This project for the double feature of adventures is way beyond its funding goal. I mean, way, way, way beyond. And you can reserve copies of both softcover adventures with PDFs for a pledge of approximately $54. I believe they're softcovers. Not positive. Pretty sure they are, though. Or if you want, you can grab just the PDFs for a pledge of approximately $27 through June 18th. Now, expected delivery on the PDFs is, get ready for this, next month, because you saw at the end of that video, it's going to the printer next month. So very nice. You'll have those PDFs in July with the print adventures to follow, hopefully, in August. These look like they'd be probably a lot of fun. I do believe they're for levels 2 to 4, thereabouts, in that vicinity. And they look like they've got maybe a bit of a sense of humor. Now, of course, I did mention that video had a song. I never said it was a good song. I just said it had a song. Flaming Heron says, well, it's got music. It's being sung, so I guess we can call that a song. Not expecting it to rock up the charts, though. No, I don't think so either. Matthew Constantine says, I like the art for this one. And they also ask, has anyone used OSC Adventures Dungeon Crawl Classics? Some look like they'd be fun. Ooh, that's going to make for a nice segue in just a moment. Agile Monk is with us in chat. Good to see you. Welcome once again. All right, let's move on to my final news piece. Hydra Cooperative and Bundle of Holding have teamed to share a money-saving offer on Jason Sholtis' OSR campaigns, and I've got the deets on the deal. Adventure. This new Operation Unfathomable bundle features, well, you guessed it, Operation Unfathomable, the Gonzo Fantasy Role-Playing Campaign setting by Jason Sholtis for old school revival tabletop retro clones. This also this offer, I don't know why I was skipping offer. This offer also includes a version for the Dungeon Crawl Classics role-playing game from Goodman Games. The Sorcerer King's son stole a powerful relic, the Null Rod, and fled into the unfathomable underworld, a subterranean wilderness of unsurpassed strangeness and peril. Your fledgling first-level adventurers pursue him into a vast and incomparably bizarre cavern world of civilized fungoids, bat-winged dwarves, two-headed giant ape mummies guarding franchise temples, decapitant soldiers, psychophages, death ray revolvers, the ruins of the now extinct genocide beetle civilization, the fizzy drink of ocular autonomy, which causes eyeballs to leave their moorings and levitate freely, and the Shagath Ka, the Worm Sultan. In most circumstances, fragile beginning characters would be doomed, but explorers with good sense and a willingness to hide can hope to gain great treasure and speedy advancement. This new offer brings you the entire Operation Unfathomable line for an unbeatable bargain price. For just $14.95, you'll get all 6 titles in the Unfathomable Collection, which has a retail value of $69 as DRM-free ebooks, including the complete 108-page Operation Unfathomable core campaign book, plus the player's guide, the sequel setting, Odious Uplands, and its free map pack, the complete conversion for Dungeon Crawl Classics, Completely Unfathomable, which actually includes both. And I think it also includes that player's guide. So that Completely Unfathomable has Operation Unfathomable and Odious Uplands and that player's guide. And maybe even the map pack. You're also going to get both volumes of Jason Sholtis' brilliant D12 tables, the Dungeon Dozen Volume 1 and Volume 2, which I've always heard really good things about. Once again, you can get all of this for $14.95 through July 1st. So the question of using OSC Adventures for Dungeon Crawl Classics, these started off for Old School Essentials. They have been ported over to DCC with that complete release. So very nice, very nice. Keithulu says they're playing in a completely unfathomable Dungeon Crawl Classics campaign right now. Doomed Colonist is with us in chat, as is Quantum Phase Dragon. Welcome to you both. Matthew says, this looks like fun. I've got the Dungeon Crawl Classics version on their drive-through wish list. Yeah, funny enough, if you only wanted to get the PDF for the Dungeon Crawl Classics version, it is $20 over on Drive-Thru RPG. So you can get it plus the 2 Dungeon Dozen releases for $15 if you order it through Bundle of Holding. And those end up in your Drive-Thru RPG store anyway. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. Keithulu says their wizard in that game ate a mushroom offered her by the mushroom people. Now she has a ladybug shell and can fly for short periods. Nice. Very cool. I have always heard really good things about these adventures. If you like Gonzo. If you do not like Gonzo, then nothing to see here. Move it along. Nothing to see. All right, that is it for the news tonight. Now, I didn't mention Drive-Thru RPG, except if you get that Bundle of Holding, that's where your PDFs show up. But don't forget, the Gaming Gang, thus the Dispatch, is affiliated with the One Bookshelf sites. So if you are going to visit Drive-Thru RPG, Dungeon Masters Guild, Storytellers Vault, Wargame Vault, what have you, please stop by thegaminggang.com first. Click on one of our banner ads. That way, if you happen to make a purchase, I get a small portion of that sale. All those nickels, dimes, and quarters really do add up and help keep thegaminggang.com around. Also, if you like the video, if you dig the channel, if you find thegaminggang.com to be a valuable resource, hell, if you just like what we do, you can always stop on by paypal.me/thegaminggang to make a small donation. Hell, you can buy me a 2-liter bottle of soda. Yummy. And there are some of you out there, such as Agile Monk, who like to stop by paypal.me/thegaminggang and make not small donations. So thank you very kindly. Pete Stracklich says they purchased their Barrow Maze through my link. Very, very cool. Thank you. I know Barrow Maze is a fairly expensive PDF, if I remember correctly. Flynn Fireforge says they have Dungeon Crawl Classic versions and Swords and Wizardry versions. Is the original version OSE or BX? For Operation Unfathomable, you might be right. It might be a Swords and Wizardry and not Old School Essentials. It's weird. It just seems like everything now that's coming out that's for like BX retro clones all carry OSE trade dress. So I kind of think like, oh yeah, okay, all right, okay. Andio, the Easy Knight, is with us. I believe this is the first time visit in chat. Welcome. All right, Matthew had to rock out. Good to see you. Hope to see you next time. Sweet. So there you go. There is the news. And of course, tonight, I am going to discuss ways to avoid the dreaded Dungeon Master / Game Master burnout. Going to talk about that in a few minutes. Hopefully, you're going to share some ideas as well in chat. And if you happen to be watching this after the stream has ended, by all means, please share your thoughts in chat, in the comment section. Yeah, if the show's over, share your ideas in chat, even though there's no flipping way to get into the chat after the show's over, but go ahead. Try it. What a dumbass I can be sometimes. Anyway, if you watch after the fact and you want to share some thoughts, do so in the comment section, please. But before we get into that, I think it's time for a brief intermission.
It's intermission time, folks. Time out for a delicious snack in our sparkling refreshment building. Every item a fresh, appetizing taste treat.
Beechnut delightedly announces. Good old-fashioned sour ball flavor is back. In new Beechnut fruit sours, sharp, snappy. Just enough sour makes you pucker up with pleasure. New Beechnut fruit sours. Pop one on your tongue. Flavor greatness in the early American tradition. Good old-fashioned sour ball flavor. Just enough sour. Try one. They're new. Lemon sours, lime sours, orange, cherry, grape. Sharp, snappy, just enough sour. Makes you pucker up with pleasure. New Beechnut fruit sours. Right flavor, right size, right price. Another quality product from Beechnut.
Want some milk and coffee with your dinner? No, give me some water. People like that need brainwashing.
They have found what they came for. That incredible lost world shut off by a towering wall of ice from which had come strange tales of wonder. Edgar Rice Burroughs, master of astounding adventure, takes us back to the fantastic island of Caprona, where time has stood still for millions of years. Where men and beasts fight a fierce battle for survival in a land of savage mystery. Come. See the forbidden city of skulls, where they sacrifice prisoners to the volcano god.
When he speaks, all die.
How you gonna stop him? With rocks? No dice, Bo. I didn't come all this way to leave you behind.
You make it away from the Nagas, but we'll never get home. The land will stop you, Ben. It's a lie.
What the hell? It's like the video suddenly ended. I was like, wait a second. What the hell happened? There's still like 30 seconds left to that. I don't know. Kind of weird. Kind of weird. Must have been a little hiccup or something. Maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. But as a gag, I figured, well, let's see. So we went and we shared the trailer for The Land That Time Forgot. So why don't we just wrap up with The People That Time Forgot, which actually is a sequel. It is a sequel to The Land That Time Forgot. And it's funny because I know there are going to be some spoilers here, but what is the movie's 50 some years old? Something like that, 50 years old. Doug McClure shows up for like 5 minutes. And I must say, I don't know how you folks feel, but in my opinion, I think Patrick Wayne was one of the absolute worst actors ever. He is awful. I had never seen him in a film that he just doesn't stand out for being terrible. I wonder how he got work, huh? If I remember correctly, he's in The Searchers. I think it's The Searchers, which is just a phenomenal film. Unless you hate John Wayne, and then you probably don't appreciate the film. But Patrick Wayne plays, I think he's like he's a cavalry private or something. And he's got like 2 lines. And he is just brutal. It's like he could have been worse if he held an index card up in front of him in frame and read the lines off of an index card. Awful. Chris Lundgren says, I remember a movie about a biosphere that goes underwater to the lost city of Atlantis. I can't remember the name of the movie, though. Wasn't it Warlords of Atlantis? You know what? Remember last week I was talking about movies I saw in Vegas as a little kid? Because my mom and dad and grandmother would be off gambling. And my grandfather really didn't gamble much. He only played penny slots. But we would usually be in Vegas for like 3 days. And there was almost always an afternoon that my brother and I would get dropped off at a theater. And I was probably 11 or 12, which would make my brother 13 or 14, somewhere in that vicinity. Probably 13. And we would just, there'd be a double feature and we'd go see it. Warlords of Atlantis was one of them. So I saw The Land That Time Forgot and Warlords of Atlantis in Las Vegas. Bizarre. Kevin King says Doug McClure kept getting cast in young roles, even when quite visibly not. Not sure why they did that. Yeah, kind of weird. All right, so this evening, we're going to talk about ways to avoid the dreaded dungeon master, game master burnout. And the reality is it happens. It happens. So if you tend to run a game session on a weekly basis, or even maybe every couple of weeks, it is possible that you will run into some burnout. And there are different things that lead to burnout. It's not simply that you're tired of running a game. There are a lot of factors that add into that. One of them is that you're just super busy with work and other things in life, and you can't devote the kind of time that you would like to your ongoing gaming. That can lead to the burnout. But I'll be the first to point out, I don't think that's what leads to most burnout as far as being a dungeon master or being a game master. So a few things that we're going to discuss here is, first of all, make sure your players understand their responsibilities at the game table. Because in my opinion, I think the thing that leads to game master burnout the most is having not only the responsibilities of running a game, running an adventure, having an ongoing campaign, but also having to know every single rule for the various different aspects of the player's characters. Because that is a thing. There are people who just show up to the game table completely unprepared for what they can and cannot do with their paladin, with their warlock, right? With their gangster. It's just sort of like, yeah, okay. All right. Personally, that drives me nuts. And I find it very irritating when you're sitting there and you've made sure that all of the players have a copy of the rules, or at least they've got a copy of the sort of information they need specifically for their character. So as an example, if you're playing 5e D&D and your character is a warrior, really no need for you to have, all the information about spell casting and things like that. So it's kind of irritating when you have players who just do not understand, or I guess I'll put it this way, can't be bothered to learn about the various different aspects of their character, thus putting that responsibility onto the game master as well. So one thing that I always recommend is make sure that your players understand it is their responsibility to understand the ins and outs of their character. They don't need to know the ins and outs of the game. They just need to understand, okay, we're in combat and I'm trying to attack somebody. Oh, I run it. I'm going to roll a 20-sided die. You'd be amazed at how many people will be, sitting around a game table. They've played umpteen times. And then they're like, what die do I need to roll? The same 20-sided fucking die you've rolled for months. That die. I mean, that's a pet peeve of mine. You can tell. You can tell. Pizza Accolade says, pizza heals my soul. Oh, so there's some discussion of terrible actors. Chevy Chase. He was okay. I think Chevy Chase started to be, once he understood his popularity, I think he became a huge pain in the ass. And probably has remained so to this day. Chris Lundgren says, one thing that's leaning them to burnout is a player keeps losing their character sheet. He's blind, but he trusts his wife to keep things for them, and they've lost it 4 times. I mean, if somebody's blind, I think I'm going to cut them a little slack on that. But Michael Burrell says, oh, that's where I've heard the name Patrick Wayne before. He was in one of the Sinbad movies. Yes, he was. He tended to show up in movies that were either starring his father or movies that were like American international films. Sean O'Donnell's with us in chat, says the Shat is worse than Chevy Chase. I would agree with you on that, and I think personality-wise, he's probably a run for the money. Between the two of them, who's the worst? Okay, so once again, one thing that I would say is make sure that your players understand their responsibilities. Something else you might want to do is try to offload some of your responsibilities to your players to help alleviate the burnout, such as initiative. So why does it have to be the game master who's tracking initiative? It can easily be one of the players instead. Pretty simple. Simple enough to do that. There are a variety of different things that you can kind of have other players kind of take the reins of, so you don't have to worry about it. You get to focus on the big picture. Something else I would say you can offload to a player is going to be like knowledge of the various different spells that they have available to them. Like I said, it's important for your players to take on the responsibility of owning up to their characters, but it's never a bad idea to have one of your players, especially if they happen to be rather gung-ho at your table, to be kind of the grimoire expert if you're playing a fantasy role-playing game, or if you're playing a game that's maybe like a modern era or something like that, to kind of have a better grasp of, the various different guns and things along those lines. Something else I think that really leads to GM burnout is feeling unappreciated. Now, I know for myself, back when I used to run Call of Cthulhu multiple times a week, there were times that I kind of felt unappreciated, where it was sort of like, okay, sure, we can play. I was running, for an example, Massive Nyarlathotep at one point, and I was having a good time, don't get me wrong, but it sort of got to the point where it was like, geez, it's like I'm obligated to do this. I'm not obligated to run Call of Cthulhu 3 nights a week, 4 nights a week, run Call of Cthulhu from noon on a Saturday to 3 o'clock in the morning on Sunday, things like that. So I can certainly see where having a feeling of not being appreciated can lead to burnout. And one of the things I recommend is make sure your players understand that. Tell them. Tell your players that, hey, you know what? I'm kind of getting burned out on this. And let them know. It's like, hey, we do this every week. We do this every couple of weeks. And it's almost like you folks make me feel like I'm obligated to do this. You'll be amazed at how your players will be like, hey, well, no, wait a second. Hold on. We love you. You're the best. All of those things, right? They'll start, stroking your ego. Well, for one, because they want to keep playing. So that's a given. Let's see. Sharon O'Donnell says, I gave the one player who's good at taking notes a little sessions note booklet. So that person is the record keeper. There you go. There's another responsibility of yours that you can kind of offload to someone else. They also keep track of the loot. Flint Fireforge says, a big practice for me is rest. I take a nap before a game or just zone out and chill. It resets my brain. Kevin King says, a peeve of theirs, spending a week prepping Tolkien only to have a player insist on playing Monty Python, knowing that the game is Tolkien. Chris Lundgren says, they do have empathy, but it just happens constantly, I guess, with these folks losing the character sheet. And there are other players tired of me having to stop the game, email a copy, etc. Pete Strakolite says, homemade cookies is a sign of affection. There you go. There you have it. Something else that I think will help alleviate burnout or prevent burnout is change your focus every session or every few sessions. And what I mean by that is maybe 1 or 2 sessions, you really focus on your NPCs, really trying to make your NPCs pop and stand out and be memorable. And then shift gears and try to make for very memorable, say, combat experiences. Try to kind of toss in some different tactics and things like that maybe your players haven't seen before, even if you're just doing theater of the mind. I'm not saying that you have to sit there and be like, oh, well, let's create all these different feats for this game that doesn't feature feats and skills and abilities. And then what you can also do is kind of change focus on the tone. So one thing that I find is pretty freeing is when everybody around the table is laughing. So, and it doesn't have to be that the players are joking around. Funny things happen during role-playing games. So don't always be looking to run a role-playing game where everything is really serious. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to suddenly take your game into a direction that's completely gonzo. No, not at all. But don't always have everything be, oh my gosh, it's a matter of life and death every minute of the game. Even if you're playing in a grim, dark sort of setting, there should be humor that kind of takes place. So that would be something I would recommend. If you're in the midst of a long campaign that maybe feels like it's dragging on, that you're just maybe not getting as far into it as you think you should, or feels like you're just spinning your wheels, take a break. Run a one-shot. In fact, take a break. Run a one-shot of a game that you're interested in checking out, interested in maybe learning more about. Maybe you've picked up a game. You're a game master. That's how it is. We pick up stuff all the time. A lot of times we crib from things that we pick up, but a lot of times we're like, hey, I'm really interested in this system. I'd like to check this out. But you're in the middle of running a big, long campaign. So you're like, yeah, well, maybe we'll get to check this out in a year or two. No, just say, hey, and let everybody know ahead of time. Say, hey, you know what? We're taking a quick break this week, and I am going to run Blade Runner, the role-playing game, from their starter set. I'm gonna run that adventure, even though you've been playing 5e D&D, or you've been playing RuneQuest, or you've been playing Call of Cthulhu, what have you. Change gears. Changing gears every once in a while actually kind of gets those juices flowing once again. And running a different system can sometimes open your eyes to how to make the system you're normally playing a little bit different, that it's not the same ho-hum all the time. Something else I recommend is set a schedule, stick to it. I know, very difficult to do these days, especially me and my group. It's sort of like, oh, really? Oh, all right. So we can play on the 14th, which is actually what's going on. And it's like, oh, so everybody's going to be there, right? Okay, all right, double checking. I was double checking today. It's like, oh, yeah, everybody's good. All right, okay. Just making sure. Because having to kind of scramble around and change your schedule, or sort of all of a sudden everybody wants to play in a couple of days, and now you're like, oh, shit, I don't have anything prepared. Now I have to, kind of jump into it and get up to speed real quick. Try to make sure that you have a schedule, stick to it. And if your players can't make it, find ways to play without those people. So as an example, if you've got a group of 5 people plus yourself, and you play on Tuesday nights, and you get together and Bob can't show up, so you got the 4 of them and yourself, figure out a way to play it. What I used to do with Call of Cthulhu is whoever wasn't there was unconscious. Because what I tend to do with Call of Cthulhu is I will end my sessions on a cliffhanger of some sort. And I was one of these game masters where, especially with Call of Cthulhu, I like to fade to black. So maybe there was a combat going on and the player characters are getting their asses handed to them, and the final player has lost their final hit points. I fade to black, and then that's the end of the session. Now, I was also one of these game masters where I didn't necessarily sit there killing off my players all the time. So I find that Call of Cthulhu works best when you allow a little leeway for your player characters to survive. I tend to have a pulpier Call of Cthulhu than, the traditional. Although I don't go as far as pulp Cthulhu, in pulpiness. So in a situation like that, let's say I had 4 players at the table and the next time we get together, only 3 of them could show up. Well, then that 4th player is out of action. They're unconscious. Maybe they're broken. Maybe they're shattered. Maybe they've gone temporarily insane. I just hand wave it and just keep moving, keep going. Worst comes to worst. If you have a group of 5 people and your scheduled day rolls around and only 2 people show up, do a quick one-shot. That's why I always recommend have some one-shot adventures in your back pocket to bust out in time of need or when things go completely off the rails. So one thing that a lot of game masters tend to do is they really go all in on a new campaign. And when the players make decisions that the game master hasn't allowed for, they panic. So what I always recommend, have a couple of one-shots that are kind of, if it's a fantasy role-playing game, it's, oh, okay, there you go. You stumble across some village, a village in need. Don't force your players to be the good guys. Don't assume that they're going to be like, oh, yeah, sure, we'll go find the kids. Oh, let's go, everybody. No, you don't have to give us anything. You don't even have to feed us. We'll just, out of the goodness of our hearts, we're going to go save those children. Don't do that. Tessie Trekkie is pointing out a change is as good as a holiday. It is. Let's see. Let's go back to chat real quick. Sean O'Donnell says, don't tell me what you're doing. Oh, no, don't tell me you're doing it. I want to find out the fun way. Baked goods are love. According to Sean O'Donnell. But Tessie Trekkie says, can we include CBD or THC in the cookies? Well, it depends on your state. I think it depends on your state. Zitro says, have someone do a one-shot, let you play for once. Easier said than done, isn't it? I'm kind of curious how many folks out there in chat, and if you're watching after the fact, let me know in the comment section. How many of you are the forever game master in your groups? I would take a guess, probably a lot of you. I don't think, and this is just me pulling this out of a hat. I don't have any, statistics or research or anything like that, but I have the feeling that there aren't as many gaming groups nowadays who rotate the game mastering as there was years ago. And I'm not saying, if we go all the way back to the old days of white box, and no, I'm just saying maybe 10, 15 years ago, as far as role-playing games, I'm going to take a guess that we probably have fewer gaming groups where this week it's Fiona running something, and then week after that, it's going to be Bob, who finally decided he's going to show up for a session. Damn you, Bob. And then for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, it's going to be so-and-so running this adventure. I don't think we see that. I think we see, for the most part, each group has one just dedicated game master, maybe someone who every once in a while will run something just to give that game master a break. So if you're in that kind of situation, what I would recommend, if you go to conventions, if you go to game days or anything like that, make sure to schedule at least 1 or 2 events where you get to play. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed playing at Gary Con and Founders and Legends. And I only got to play 1 session. So at Founders and Legends, it was Shadow Dark. And at Gary Con, the prior Gary Con, not this past Gary Con, I got to play Mutant Crawl Classics. So just 8 hours of having someone else run a game helped me kind of get my juices back. Really weird. Because I would have thought, I got to play one time. But it was funny because when I played Mutant Crawl Classics, I think that was the first time in, no joke, 30 years that I wasn't the game master. That's why the reality is I would love to find a game group around where I live where I could actually be a player. But I also think right now it's not all that easy for people my age to get into a gaming group, either to form a gaming group or to get into a gaming group that doesn't involve family members. So yeah, I've considered trying to see about, maybe it'd be a little easier for me because of this. But if I were just a gamer, probably not. Probably not. All right. So let's see. As far as that question I asked. Hey, Tony Urquides is with us. Good to see you, Tony. Flint Fireforge says they're raising their hand. Russell Higgins says, not them. So I guess Russell has a group where more than one person runs games. Semper Buffo is the forever game master. Kevin King says they run 3 to 4 times as many games as everybody else they play with. Well, at least you're getting to play a little bit. Chris Lundgren says 98% of the time they're the game master. Sean O'Donnell is in luck, says their Friday group has 5 people who will run games, and Saturday just has the one. It's a weird contrast. Game Master's Hobby says same. And they want to play every now and then. Even if you play and you find the game master is not all that good, that's fine. You know, for one, it makes you feel better about how you approach running your games. And you still got to play. So that helps too. Last 2 things to avoid burnout. Sometimes you just got to let it go. So as I mentioned, a lot of times when a game master starts up a new campaign, or maybe they're starting up a new game, I mean, they're super excited and they're really invested. Sometimes too much so. So if things don't go exactly as they pictured it, then they're disappointed. They're beating themselves up. Oh, I thought for sure that the players would figure out that clue and we could move to the next step. And I can't understand why. Why aren't they figuring this out? It happens. Let it go. Keep moving along. Also, when I say let it go, sometimes campaigns just run their course. They're over. They're done. You didn't get to the final, epic conclusion or confrontation or something like that. Just let it go. Keep your sanity and realize, you know what? A year of running this, 6 months of running this, 3 months of running this, it's pretty much run its course. It's not a bad idea, even if you're continuing to run the same campaign. Every once in a while, have another session 0. Just kind of remind the players, make sure everybody's still on the same page, things like that. Also, an option for you. And then lastly, Game Master burnout can come from someone just not being a good fit to be a dungeon master or game master. Just because someone wants to do something, or in a lot of ways, just because someone was nominated to do something, kind of forced to do something, does not equate that they're going to have a good time or that it's a right fit for them to be a game master. Just because somebody is a good player doesn't necessarily mean that they will be a good dungeon master. And just because someone's a good dungeon master doesn't necessarily mean they will be a good player. There are some game masters, when they play, they're a major pain in the ass because they're correcting the actual game's game master on rules or, oh, yeah, I ran this adventure. Oh, I know this adventure. No, it shouldn't be like this. It should be like this. It's like, no, it's my game. I'm running it. It's going to be the way I say it is. I have actually played, now it's been years and years, but way back in the day, when I was in my 20s, when I was in my early 20s, I played in some games with players who were game masters who were just absolute pains in the ass. And I was like, damn, rules lawyers are bad enough, but God, everything's like slowed down to a crawl because it's like, you got to make sure that, oh, well, no, that rule is no. The rule is this. I don't give a shit what the rule is. We're trying to play a game. You just brought everything to a screeching halt. So if you're not built to be a game master or dungeon master, don't worry about it. It's not that big a deal. Just pass the torch to somebody else. And unfortunately, we do live in a time when it's kind of like, well, if you're not the one who's going to run something, then the rest of the people in the group aren't going to be running it. So it's either you run it or you don't play. And I can see that being very frustrating and being under a lot of pressure, a lot of strain, where it's like, well, geez, I fucking hate being the dungeon master, but if I don't do it, nobody's playing Dungeons and Dragons. Shit. If that's the case, nobody plays Dungeons and Dragons. Sorry to say, your mental health is more valuable than people sitting around your game table playing. And of course, in a situation like that, try to find a group. Try to find another group where you can be the player. And maybe you will actually get the bug up your ass to run something again. You never know. OSRDM is with us in chat. Welcome aboard. All right, let's wrap up some chat here. Chris Lundgren is asking if you even change it up and play a modern board game with your friends. Try a different thing and get back into your role-playing game next time. Take a break. What we would tend to do, and this is even now, is if we can't get enough, well, I don't want to say enough, but if we can't get like 4 players for a role-playing game, if it turns out it's just going to be, say, myself, my brother, and Elliot, we'll just play some board games. That's fine. We've got plenty of them. In fact, that's what we did last time we got together. We just, because my nephew was still deployed out in Africa, so we just, played 3 or 4 board games. We had a good time. So yeah, I agree. If you're starting to feel some burnout, just like I said, change things up. Do a one-shot of something else. Play something else. Run a different game. And when I say run a different game, I don't mean, well, I was running 5e D&D, so now I'm going to run a one-shot of Pathfinder First Edition. No, I mean something radically different, preferably with far lighter rules than you use currently, because that kind of gives you a break as far as all those rules floating around in your head too. But Chris Lundgren says, in the end, it's just a damn game. If you're not having fun, let it go. Exactly. I completely agree. Chris also pointed out, Jeff, you nailed it. Not everyone can be a game master. And also not everyone is a good player. Yeah, I have played with people over the years that I would probably not welcome to my table again. So there is that. Game Master's Hobby says, 30 years, Jeff. I guess when you finally get to play, it's hard not to judge your new game master. Constantly thinking about how much that you would have done things differently. I consciously do my best to not do that. And of course, it's natural. So when we played Mutant Crawl Classics, I kind of thought, yeah, I would probably have approached this a little different in certain things, but I still had a really good time. And then when we played Shadow Dark, it was kind of the same thing. We're sort of like, okay, I might have focused on this rather than that, but well, I still had some fun. So yeah, but I understand. I mean, it is a natural thing to sit there and go, kind of surprised they approached things that way. All righty then. So that is it for this time out. Tomorrow night's topic is going to be kind of unusual. So I am going to discuss 5 non-superhero comic book series which really do deserve to have a tabletop role-playing game. Yes. Like I said, something kind of different. So tune in. Maybe one of your favorite non-superhero comic books makes the cut. All righty then. So if you're watching live, thank you very much. If you watched live and took part in chat, a bigger thank you, big tip of the cap, because not only are you keeping me company, you're keeping each other company too, especially when I'm going through the tabletop gaming news of the day. But of course, I know a lot of folks out there, they don't have an opportunity to watch live. Doesn't matter if you're watching live or on Memorex. Really do appreciate taking time out to watch any of the nearly 2,000 videos here on the Gaming Gang channel. If you like the video, by all means, please give it a quick thumbs up. Subscribe to the Gaming Gang channel if you haven't already. And if you do subscribe, don't forget, ring that bell, because it'll not only let you know when the Dispatch streams live Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday evenings at 7 p.m. Central. I'll also let you know when I share other videos, such as this month's edition of Why You Should Play Dungeon Crawl Classics, and my review of the Pendragon 6th edition core rulebook. Yes, check those out if you have not already. I will mention, I was hoping to get my review of the Grey Knight out today. Not going to happen. Sorry, life has gotten in the way. So probably won't have my review of the Grey Knight out until maybe Thursday or possibly Friday morning. But I will have the review. But I did want to make sure I got the core rulebook review out there before it goes on sale, because it hits stores tomorrow. And I'll give you a hint. I really like it. Like it a lot. But of course, when you're not watching videos on the Gaming Gang channel, be sure to visit thegaminggang.com for all latest in tabletop gaming news, reviews, and a whole lot more you are not going to find on YouTube. Come on, you know the drill. Get your geek on at thegaminggang.com. Once again, I'm Jeff McAleer. Hopefully everybody enjoys the rest of their morning, afternoon, evening, whatever time of day it is in your neck of the woods. And of course, I always hope each and every one of you gets to enjoy plenty of great gaming with your gang.